The auction block was no place for a woman who could read Latin. But there Sophia Lancaster stood with her chin held high and her green eyes blazing defiance at every man who dared to meet her gaze. She had been traveling west as a teacher when bandits attacked the stagecoach 3 days prior, killing the driver and guard before selling the passengers to a corrupt marshal who ran illegal auctions out of a ramshackle town called Brimstone Gulch, Arizona Territory, in the scorching summer of 1876. The July heat beat down mercilessly as flies buzzed around the platform, and Sophia refused to show the terror clawing at her insides, even as the auctioneer called for opening bids. $500 for this pretty little schoolmarm, a portly merchant shouted from the crowd, his jowls shaking with enthusiasm. 600, called another voice, this one belonging to a rail-thin man with yellowed teeth who looked like he had not bathed in months. Sophia felt bile rise in her throat, but kept her expression neutral. She would not give these men the satisfaction of seeing her break. Her dark hair had come loose from its pins during her captivity, hanging in waves past her shoulders, and her traveling dress was torn at the hem and covered in dust. At 22 years old, she had left Philadelphia with such hope for her new position teaching children in Prescott, Arizona. Now she stood on an auction block like chattel, her fate to be decided by whoever had the most coin. 700, came a new voice, deeper than the others, and Sophia's eyes snapped to the source. A mountain of a man stood at the back of the crowd, easily 6.5 feet tall with shoulders that seemed to span half the width of the platform. His dark hair fell past his shoulders, tied back loosely with a leather cord, and his face was all hard angles and sun-bronzed skin. Muscles rippled beneath his buckskin shirt as he crossed his arms, and even from a distance, Sophia could see the intensity in his gray eyes as they locked onto hers. "Well now, looks like we got ourselves a real bidder," the auctioneer said with a greasy smile. "That is Nathan Wright, ladies and gentlemen. Mountain man what comes down from the high country maybe twice a year. Reckon he is looking for some company up in that cabin of his." 800, the merchant countered, puffing out his chest. 1,000, Nathan said, his voice carrying easily across the crowd without him raising it. There was something about the way he spoke, calm and certain, that made people listen. The merchant sputtered, his face reddening. 1,100. 1,500, Nathan replied, and the crowd went silent. That was more money than most men in Brimstone Gulch saw in a year. Sophia felt her heart hammering against her ribs. She did not want to be bought by anyone, but if she had to choose between the lecherous merchant or the other unsavory characters in the crowd, at least this mountain man did not look at her like she was a piece of meat. His gaze was steady, almost protective, though that made no sense given the circumstances. 1,500 going once, the auctioneer called, practically salivating at his cut of the profits. Going twice. No, Sophia said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. The crowd murmured in confusion. I refuse to be sold like livestock. I am a free woman, and this entire proceeding is illegal under territorial law. The auctioneer laughed, a harsh bark of sound. Sweetheart, you are in Brimstone Gulch. Ain't no territorial law here except what Marshal Crow says, and he says you are getting sold. Now shut that pretty mouth before I have someone shut it for you. The lady said no. Nathan's voice cut through the crowd like a knife. He had moved closer, and Sophia could now see the full imposing nature of his presence. His buckskin clothing was well made and clean, unlike the grimy outfits of most men in town. A large hunting knife hung at his belt, and she suspected he had other weapons hidden on his person. His gray eyes, which had seemed almost cold from a distance, held something else now as they met hers again. Respect, maybe, or understanding. Now hold on, the auctioneer said, his smile faltering. You was just bidding on her. I was trying to get her away from these vultures, Nathan said, jerking his chin toward the merchant and the other bidders. But she does not want to be bought, and I respect that. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to let her down from that platform, and I am going to escort her out of this cesspool you call a town. The hell you are, a new voice snarled. Marshal Crow pushed through the crowd, his hand on his pistol. He was a thick-set man with a scarred face and mean eyes. I run this operation, right, and nobody tells me how to conduct my business. You want the girl, you pay for her. Otherwise, keep your mouth shut. Nathan did not move, but something shifted in his posture, like a wolf preparing to strike. You are running an illegal slave auction, Crow. There are federal marshals in Tucson who would be mighty interested to hear about what goes on in Brimstone Gulch. You threatening me, Mountain Man? Crow's hand tightened on his gun. Just stating facts, Nathan said calmly. Now, I am going to walk up to that platform, help the lady down, and we are going to leave. You can either let that happen peaceful-like, or this can get messy. Your choice. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a blade. Sophia held her breath, aware that her fate hung in the balance of whatever happened next. She could see other men in the crowd shifting, hands moving toward weapons. This could turn into a bloodbath in seconds. Marshal Crow studied Nathan for a long moment, his jaw working. Finally, he spat in the dirt. Fine, take the uppity bitch, but you are not welcome in Brimstone Gulch anymore, right? You show your face here again and I will shoot you on sight. That is a sacrifice I am willing to make, Nathan said dryly. He walked toward the platform with measured steps, his eyes never leaving the marshal. When he reached Sophia, he held out his hand. Madam, if you would like to leave this place, I would be honored to escort you. Sophia looked at his outstretched hand, weathered and calloused but steady. She had just refused to let him buy her, had made a public spectacle of herself, and yet here he was offering her a way out, without asking for anything in return. She placed her hand in his, feeling the strength in his grip as he helped her down from the platform. Thank you, she said quietly. Do not thank me yet, he replied, his voice low. We need to get out of here before Crow changes his mind. He was right. Sophia could feel hostile eyes following them as Nathan guided her through the crowd, his hand on her elbow firm but not controlling. He had positioned himself between her and the other men, using his considerable size as a shield. They reached the edge of town where a magnificent black horse waited, along with a pack mule laden with supplies. Can you ride? Nathan asked. Yes, Sophia said. She had learned as a girl, though it had been some time. Good. We will take it slow until we are clear of town, then we need to put some distance between us and these bastards. He swung up into the saddle with fluid grace despite his size, then reached down to help her up. Sophia hesitated for just a moment before accepting his hand and letting him pull her up behind him. She had no saddle, no proper seat, and had to wrap her arms around his waist to keep from falling. She could feel the solid muscle of his back against her chest, the steady rise and fall of his breathing. Nathan clicked his tongue, and the horse moved forward at a walk. The pack mule followed obediently behind. They made their way out of Brimstone Gulch, and Sophia did not breathe easy until the ramshackle buildings were out of sight behind them. Only then did Nathan urge the horse into a faster pace, a ground-eating trot that carried them across the desert landscape. They rode for hours without speaking, the sun beating down mercilessly. Sophia's arms grew tired from holding on, and her mouth was parched with thirst, but she did not complain. Anything was better than the auction block. Finally, As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Nathan slowed the horse to a walk and then to a stop near a cluster of rocks that provided some shade. "We will rest here for a bit," he said, dismounting and then helping her down. Sophia's legs nearly buckled when her feet hit the ground, stiff from the hours of riding. Nathan steadied her with a hand on her arm. "Easy now. Sit down and rest. I will get you some water." Sophia sank gratefully onto a flat rock, watching as Nathan moved with efficient economy, pulling a canteen from his saddle and bringing it to her. "Small sips," he advised. "You will make yourself sick otherwise." She took the canteen with trembling hands and forced herself to follow his advice, though she wanted to gulp down the entire contents. The water was warm but tasted like heaven. When she had drunk her fill, she handed it back. "Thank you, Mr. Wright." "Nathan," he said, taking a swig himself. "No need for formalities after you have been pressed against my back for the better part of an afternoon." Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the desert sun. "Nathan, then. I am Sophia Lancaster." "Pleased to make your acquaintance, Miss Lancaster, though I wish it were under better circumstances." He sat down on another rock, his long legs stretched out in front of him. Up close, she could see he was probably in his late 20s, with small lines at the corners of his eyes from squinting in the sun. His face was handsome in a rugged way, all strong bones and firm jaw. "How did you end up on that auction block?" Sophia told him about the stagecoach attack, the bandits who had killed the driver and guard, how they had dragged her and 2 other passengers to Brimstone Gulch and sold them to Marshal Crowe. "The other 2, a man and his wife, they were sold yesterday. I do not know what happened to them." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Nothing good. Crowe has been running that operation for about 2 years now. Preys on travelers, people nobody will miss. Territorial authorities know about it, but Brimstone Gulch is remote enough that nobody wants to make the ride out here to deal with it." "That is barbaric," Sophia said, anger flooding through her. "How can they just let it happen?" "Welcome to the Arizona Territory," Nathan said with a bitter smile. "Law is more of a suggestion out here than a rule. That is why I stay up in the mountains most of the time. Less likely to run into the worst of humanity." "Why were you in Brimstone Gulch then?" "Needed supplies. Figured I could stand the stench of the place long enough to get flour and coffee." He looked at her, his gray eyes serious. "I did not go there expecting to find someone on an auction block. When I saw you up there, looking like you were ready to spit fire at anyone who came near you, I figured I had to do something." "You were going to buy me," Sophia said, and it was not quite a question. "Yes," Nathan admitted. "My plan was to get you away from there, then take you to the nearest legitimate town where you would be safe. Prescott, maybe, or Tucson, somewhere with real law. But I refused," Sophia said. "You did," Nathan agreed, "and you had every right to. I should not have assumed you would want my help, even with good intentions behind it." Sophia studied him for a long moment. Everything about Nathan Wright suggested capability and strength, from the way he moved to the calm confidence in his voice. But there was also gentleness in how he had helped her down from the platform, in how he had positioned himself as a shield between her and danger without being controlling about it. "I do want your help," she said quietly. "I just did not want to be purchased like property. There is a difference." "I understand," Nathan said, "and for what it is worth, I am sorry you had to go through that ordeal." "It was not your fault," Sophia said. "You were the only one who treated me like a human being instead of chattel. I am grateful for that and for your intervention. Without you, I would be." She could not finish the sentence, the horrible possibilities too awful to voice. "You are safe now," Nathan said firmly. "Or at least safer. We still need to put more distance between us and Crowe. He struck me as the type to hold a grudge." "Where are we going?" Sophia asked. Nathan was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking through options. My original plan was to take you to Prescott, since you said that was where you were headed. But that is several days' ride from here, and we would have to skirt back around Brimstone Gulch to get there. Tucson is closer, maybe 3 days if we push it. Is there nowhere closer? Sophia asked. I do not wish to impose on you for 3 days. Tonopah Junction is about a day's ride north, Nathan said. It is a small mining town in Nevada, right across the territorial border. Has a proper sheriff and everything. I could take you there, make sure you are settled somewhere safe, and then continue on my way. That seems like the most reasonable option, Sophia said, though part of her felt strange about the idea of Nathan continuing on his way. He had saved her life, and they barely knew each other, yet already she felt a connection to him. Probably just because of the trauma of the day, she told herself. He was her rescuer, nothing more. Tonopah Junction it is, then, Nathan said. He stood, his movements fluid despite his size. We should keep moving while we still have daylight. Once the sun sets, we will make camp. They rode for another few hours, the landscape gradually shifting from the harsh desert of Arizona to the slightly cooler terrain of southern Nevada. When full darkness fell, Nathan found a sheltered spot among some rocks and scrub brush where they would be hidden from casual observers, but could still see anyone approaching. He built a small fire, using dried brush that produced minimal smoke, and prepared a simple meal of beans and salt pork from his supplies. Sophia sat on her bedroll, watching him work. Everything he did was efficient and practiced, the movements of someone who had spent a great deal of time alone in the wilderness. How long have you been a mountain man? She asked as he handed her a tin plate of food. About 8 years, Nathan said, settling down on his own bedroll across the fire from her. I came west after the war, looking for something different than what I left behind in Missouri. The war, Sophia said softly. That would have made him around 18 when it ended, about the same age she had been. Which side? Union, Nathan said. Fought with the Missouri State Militia, saw things no young man should see. When it was over, I could not go back to farming like my pa wanted. The land felt too small, too full of ghosts, so I headed west, kept going until I found the mountains, and there I stayed. Do you have family back in Missouri? Sophia asked. Had, Nathan said, his voice carefully neutral. Pa died a few years back. Ma went before the war. Had a sister, but she married and moved to St. Louis. We exchange letters maybe once a year. He took a bite of his food. What about you? Philadelphia is a long way from Arizona territory. My father was a professor of classical languages at the university, Sophia said. He taught me Latin, Greek, some Hebrew. My mother died when I was young. Father passed last year, and I realized there was nothing keeping me in Philadelphia. I had been teaching at a girls' school, but the headmistress and I did not see eye to eye on much of anything. When I saw an advertisement for a teaching position in Prescott, it seemed like a sign, a chance to start fresh somewhere new. That took courage, Nathan said. Coming west alone, or foolishness, Sophia said with a bitter laugh. Look where it got me. You survived, Nathan pointed out. Kept your dignity and your strength even in the worst circumstances. That is not foolishness. That is courage. Sophia felt unexpected tears prick at her eyes. She had been holding herself together through sheer force of will all day, refusing to break down, but Nathan's simple kindness threatened to undo her composure. She blinked rapidly, looking away. Thank you. They finished their meal in comfortable silence. Nathan cleaned the dishes with sand and packed them away, then checked on the horse and mule, making sure they were securely hobbled. When he returned to the fire, he pulled a blanket from his pack. You should try to get some sleep. We will leave at first light. "What about you?" Sophia asked. "I will keep watch for a while, make sure we were not followed. I will sleep later." He must have seen the worry on her face because he added, "I promise, Miss Lancaster, you are safe with me. I will not let anything happen to you." Sophia believed him. She could not explain why, but she trusted this man she had only met hours ago. She wrapped herself in the blanket he had given her, using her torn carpet bag as a pillow, and closed her eyes. Despite her exhaustion, sleep was slow to come. Every time she drifted off, she would jerk awake, her heart pounding, reliving the moment on the auction block or the terror of the stagecoach attack. "Easy," Nathan's voice came through the darkness, low and soothing. "You are safe. Just breathe." Sophia realized she was trembling, her breath coming in short gasps. "I am sorry, I cannot seem to." "You do not need to apologize," Nathan said. "You have been through hell today. It is going to take time to get past it." She heard him shift, and when she opened her eyes, she could see his silhouette against the dying fire. He had moved closer, though still maintaining a respectful distance. "My first battle during the war, I could not sleep for 3 days straight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces of the men I had killed, thought I was losing my mind." "What did you do?" Sophia asked. "Had a sergeant who had seen it before. He told me that what I was feeling was normal, that it meant I was still human. Said the men who could kill and then sleep like babies were the ones to worry about. He stayed up with me those nights, talking about anything and everything until finally my body could not take it anymore and I passed out from exhaustion." Nathan paused. "Point is, it gets easier. Not right away, but eventually, and you do not have to go through it alone." Sophia felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. "Will you talk to me, just for a little while?" "Of course," Nathan said. "What would you like to talk about?" "Tell me about the mountains," Sophia said. "Your cabin. What is it like?" Nathan's voice took on a different quality as he spoke, a warmth she had not heard before. "My cabin is up in the high country, about 2 days' ride north of here, deeper into Nevada. Built it myself over the course of 2 summers. It is small, just 1 room really, but it has a good stone fireplace and a solid roof. There is a stream about 50 yards away that runs year-round, cold and clear. In the summer, the meadow around the cabin is full of wildflowers, every color you can imagine. In the winter, the snow comes up past the windows and it is so quiet you can hear your own heartbeat." "It sounds beautiful," Sophia said softly. "It is," Nathan agreed. "I spend most of my time hunting and trapping. There are deer, elk, sometimes bear if you know where to look. I sell the pelts in the fall, stock up on supplies, and then head back up before the snow gets too deep. I've got books up there too. Brought them up over the years. Nothing fancy like Latin texts, but I have got Shakespeare, some Mark Twain, a Bible." "You read Shakespeare?" Sophia asked, surprised. "Why do you sound so shocked?" Nathan asked, and she could hear the amusement in his voice. "Just because I live in the mountains does not mean I am an illiterate savage." "I did not mean it like that," Sophia said quickly. I suppose I made assumptions." "I apologize." "No offense taken," Nathan said. "Most people do make assumptions, but my ma was a schoolteacher before she married my pa. She made sure I could read and write before I could ride a horse. Used to read to me every night stories and poetry. I guess some of it stuck." Sophia found herself smiling in the darkness. "What is your favorite Shakespeare play?" "The Tempest," Nathan said without hesitation. "I like the idea of Prospero on his island, living apart from the world, master of his own domain. Though I suppose I understand the ending better now than I did when I first read it. Sometimes isolation is not the answer, even when it feels safe." They talked for a long time, their conversation ranging from books to favorite foods to childhood memories. Nathan told her about learning to track animals from his father, about the first deer he shot when he was 12 years old. Sophia shared memories of her father teaching her Greek verbs while they walked through the Philadelphia streets, about sneaking books from his library that were deemed inappropriate for young ladies. Finally, Sophia felt her eyelids growing heavy, Nathan's steady voice a comfort in the darkness. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" "For staying up with me, for sharing your stories." "Anytime, Miss Lancaster. Now get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day." This time, when Sophia closed her eyes, sleep came easily. She woke to the smell of coffee and the pale light of dawn. Nathan was already up, tending to the fire and preparing breakfast. When he saw her stirring, he smiled. "Morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected," Sophia admitted, sitting up and trying to smooth her hopelessly tangled hair. She must look a fright, but Nathan did not seem to notice or care. "Good," he said. "I've got coffee ready and we will eat quick before we head out. With luck, we should reach Tanapa Junction by evening." They broke camp efficiently, Nathan handling most of the work while Sophia rolled up the bedrolls. Within an hour, they were on horseback again, heading north. The landscape was rocky and sparse, but there was a harsh beauty to it. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks touched with early morning gold. Riding behind Nathan, Sophia found herself hyper-aware of his presence. The strength of his back, the capable way he handled the horse, the occasional word he would murmur to the animal. At one point, they startled a group of wild horses, and Nathan stopped to let them pass, his hand coming back to rest on Sophia's knee in a gesture that was both protective and reassuring. "They are beautiful," Sophia breathed, watching the horses thunder across the desert. "They are free," Nathan said. "That is what makes them beautiful." They stopped once at midday to rest the horse and eat some jerky and hardtack. Sophia's body ached from the long ride, muscles protesting that had not been used in years, but she did not complain. She could endure physical discomfort if it meant putting distance between herself and Brimstone Gulch. As the afternoon wore on, Sophia noticed Nathan checking over his shoulder more frequently, his posture tense. "What is wrong?" she asked. "Probably nothing," Nathan said, but his tone suggested otherwise. "Thought I saw dust on the horizon a few miles back. Could just be wind, but you think someone might be following us," Sophia finished, her heart sinking. "Like I said, probably nothing. But we will keep a sharp eye out just in case." He urged the horse to a faster pace. They had been riding for another hour when Nathan suddenly reined the horse to a stop, his hand moving to the rifle strapped to his saddle. "Riders," he said quietly, "coming up fast behind us." Sophia turned to look and saw what he had spotted. 3 men on horseback pushing their mounts hard. Even from a distance she recognized the lead rider. Marshal Crowe. "Hell," Nathan said, which seemed to sum up the situation perfectly. "Hold on tight." He kicked the horse into a gallop, and Sophia wrapped her arms around his waist as they raced across the desert. The pack mule could not keep up at this pace and fell behind, but Nathan did not slow. Behind them, she could hear shouts as their pursuers realized they had been spotted. "There." Nathan pointed ahead to a cluster of rocks and a small canyon. "If we can reach that, we will have cover." They raced toward the rocks, the horse breathing hard beneath them. Bullets whined past them, and Sophia pressed her face against Nathan's back, praying they would make it. They reached the rocks just as another volley of shots rang out, and Nathan practically threw himself from the saddle, pulling Sophia down with him. He slapped the horse on the rump, sending it deeper into the rocks where it would be safer, then grabbed his rifle and positioned himself behind a boulder. "Stay down," he ordered Sophia, then rose up just enough to sight down the barrel of his rifle. He fired once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Sophia heard a scream and saw one of the riders tumble from his horse. The other two riders had taken cover behind rocks of their own about 50 yards away. "Right," Crow's voice echoed across the distance. "Give us the girl and we will let you ride out of here." "Not a chance in hell," Nathan called back. He had reloaded and was scanning the rocks, looking for targets. "You are outnumbered, mountain man. You cannot stay there forever." "I can stay here a hell of a lot longer than you can," Nathan replied. "I have got water and supplies. What have you got?" There was silence from Crow's position. Nathan glanced at Sophia. "You okay?" "I have been better," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice steady, "but I am uninjured." "Good. Stay behind this rock and do not stick your head up for any reason." He fired another shot, and Sophia heard it ricochet off stone. "I am going to make this very unpleasant for them until they decide to leave." For the next hour, Nathan and the two remaining men exchanged sporadic gunfire. Nathan had the advantage of a better position and superior marksmanship. He seemed to be able to shoot a fly off a fence post at 100 yards. Every few minutes, he would fire a shot that would come close enough to make the other men duck and curse. "You are just wasting ammunition," Crow finally shouted. "We can wait you out." "You are welcome to try," Nathan called back, "but I should tell you we are about 5 miles from Tanapa Junction. That is a town with a real sheriff who does not take kindly to gunfire this close to his jurisdiction. All this shooting is going to attract attention, and when the sheriff comes to investigate, I am going to tell him all about your little auction house in Brimstone Gulch. That federal marshal in Tucson will be mighty interested to hear about it too." Another silence. Sophia could practically hear Crow thinking through his options. Finally, "This is not over, right?" "It is for today," Nathan said. They heard the sound of horses, and Sophia risked a peek around the rock to see Crow and his remaining man riding away, heading back south. She let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Nathan stayed in position for several more minutes, watching to make sure it was not a trick. Finally, he lowered his rifle. "They are gone, for now." "Will they come back?" Sophia asked. "Not today," Nathan said. "Maybe not at all if they believe what I said about the sheriff, but we should still get to Tanapa Junction as soon as possible." He looked at her, his gray eyes filled with concern. "Are you sure you are all right?" "Yes," Sophia said, though in truth she was shaking. The reality of how close they had come to death was sinking in. "You saved my life. Again." "You are making a habit of needing saving," Nathan said, but there was no judgment in his voice, only gentle teasing. "We should work on that." Despite everything, Sophia laughed. It came out slightly hysterical, but it was genuine. "I will add it to my list of self-improvement goals." Nathan retrieved the horse, which had only wandered about 20 yards into the rocks and was calmly cropping at some scrub grass. The pack mule was nowhere to be seen, likely still running. Nathan sighed. "Well, there goes my supplies. Hopefully I can get more in Tanapa Junction." They mounted up again and continued north at a more cautious pace. True to Nathan's word, within 2 hours they crested a rise and saw the town of Tanapa Junction spread out below them in a valley. It was not large, maybe 30 or 40 buildings clustered around a main street, but it looked like paradise compared to Brimstone Gulch. Sophia could see a church steeple, several substantial houses, what looked like a hotel, and various shops and businesses. "There," Nathan said, relief evident in his voice. "You will be safe here." They rode down into town as the sun was setting, casting everything in golden light. People on the street turned to stare at them, taking in Sophia's disheveled appearance and Nathan's armed readiness, but no one seemed hostile. Nathan stopped in front of a building with a sign that read, "Sheriff's Office." A man in his 50s with a silver star pinned to his vest emerged from the office, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. "Help you folks, Sheriff," Nathan said with a nod. "I am Nathan Wright. This is Miss Sophia Lancaster. We have had some trouble and the lady needs protection." The sheriff's eyes sharpened. "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that involves an illegal auction house in Brimstone Gulch, Arizona Territory, being run by a man calling himself Marshall Crow," Nathan said. "Miss Lancaster was kidnapped and put up for sale. I helped her escape, but Crow and his men followed us. We exchanged gunfire about 5 miles south of here." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "Brimstone Gulch. I have heard rumors about that place. Come inside, both of you. Let us talk properly." They spent the next hour in the sheriff's office, Sophia recounting her ordeal while Nathan filled in the details of their escape and the confrontation that afternoon. The sheriff, whose name was Frank Morrison, listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "I will send a telegram to the territorial marshal in Tucson," Sheriff Morrison said when they had finished. "They need to know about this. In the meantime, Miss Lancaster, you are safe here in Tonopah Junction. Crow has no authority in Nevada, and if he sets foot in my town, I will arrest him." "Thank you, Sheriff," Sophia said, relief flooding through her. "Where are you planning to go from here?" Morrison asked. "You said you were headed to Prescott for a teaching position." "I was," Sophia said, "though I do not know if that position is still available. The school was expecting me 2 weeks ago." "Well, funny you should mention teaching," Morrison said, leaning back in his chair. "Our schoolteacher just got married and moved to California with her new husband. Town has been looking for a replacement. Pay is not much, $40 a month plus room and board, but if you are interested, the job is yours." Sophia blinked in surprise. "Really? Really? We have got about 20 children who need educating, and their parents have been complaining something fierce about the lack of a teacher." "You would be doing us a favor," Morrison smiled. "Besides, Tonopah Junction is a good town, growing but not so fast that we have lost our sense of community. I think you would like it here." Sophia looked at Nathan, who gave her an encouraging nod. "It is a good offer, Miss Lancaster. Tonopah Junction is a safe, respectable place. You could do worse." "I suppose I could stay," Sophia said slowly, "at least for a while." The alternative was trying to reach Prescott on her own, and after everything that had happened, the thought of more travel made her want to weep. Here was a job, safety, a chance to catch her breath. "Yes, yes, I accept. Thank you, Sheriff Morrison." "Excellent," Morrison said, standing. "I will take you to meet Evelyn Parker. She runs the boarding house and has been looking after the schoolhouse since Miss Crawford left. She will get you settled." "What about Nathan?" Sophia asked, suddenly reluctant to let him out of her sight. He had been her anchor through all of this. "I will be around for a day or two," Nathan said. "Need to replace the supplies I lost and rest my horse. I will check in with you before I head back to the mountains." It was not much, but it was something. Sophia nodded, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in her chest at the thought of him leaving. Sheriff Morrison walked them over to a neat white house with a sign reading, "Parker's Boarding House." An energetic woman in her 40s answered the door, her eyes going wide when Morrison explained the situation. "Oh, you poor dear," Evelyn Parker said, ushering Sophia inside. Come in, come in. Mr. Wright, you are welcome too. I will put on tea." "Thank you, madam, but I should see to my horse," Nathan said. He looked at Sophia, and something passed between them, an unspoken acknowledgement of all they had been through together. "I will see you tomorrow, Miss Lancaster." "Tomorrow," Sophia agreed, though she wanted to ask him to stay, to not leave her alone with strangers, even kind ones. But that was foolish. She could not cling to him forever. Nathan tipped his hat to both women and walked away, leading his horse toward what looked like a livery stable. Sophia watched him go, a strange ache in her chest. "That is quite a man," Evelyn said, following Sophia's gaze. "We do not see Nathan Wright in town often, but when we do, he is always respectful and pays his bills on time. You are lucky he found you." "I am," Sophia said softly. "Very lucky." Evelyn showed her to a small but clean room on the second floor, with a real bed, a dresser, and even a basin and pitcher for washing. After days of captivity and sleeping on the ground, it looked like heaven. Evelyn brought her tea, some bread and butter, and a nightgown to borrow. "You just rest now, dear," Evelyn said kindly. "Tomorrow we will get you sorted out properly. The town is taking up a collection to help you get started, and I am sure we can find you some proper clothing." "I have money," Sophia said. "Or I did. My carpetbag was lost when the stagecoach was attacked." "Do not you worry about that right now," Evelyn said. "One thing at a time." After Evelyn left, Sophia washed as best she could with the basin of water, changed into the borrowed nightgown, and climbed into bed. The sheets were clean and smelled of lavender, and the mattress was soft. She should have fallen asleep immediately, exhausted as she was. Instead, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Nathan. About the steady calm of his voice, the strength of his arms around her when he had helped her down from the auction block, the way he had positioned himself between her and danger without hesitation. About his stories of his cabin in the mountains, his love of Shakespeare, the kindness in his gray eyes. She had known him less than 2 days. It was ridiculous to feel this sense of loss at the thought of him leaving, and yet she did. The next morning, Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of voices downstairs. She dressed in one of the simple cotton dresses Evelyn had left for her, brushed her hair until it was presentable, and went down to find the dining room full of people. "There she is," Evelyn said brightly. "Sophia, come meet everyone. This is James Whitmore, who owns the general store. His wife Martha is the one with the apple pie. That is Dr. Harrison and his wife Prudence. And this young man is Tommy Chen, whose family runs the laundry." Sophia was overwhelmed by the warmth of the welcome. People pressed food on her, asked questions about her ordeal, offered help with anything she might need. It was so different from the reserved social interactions of Philadelphia that she hardly knew how to respond. "Where is the schoolhouse?" Sophia asked when there was a lull in the conversation. "Right next to the church," Martha Whitmore said. "I will take you over after breakfast if you like. Fair warning, it has not been used in 6 weeks, so it might need some cleaning." Sophia spent the morning touring the schoolhouse with Martha and several other women who had come to help clean and organize. The building was small but well constructed, with benches for the students, a desk for the teacher, a blackboard, and even a small library of books. By the afternoon, it was spotless and ready for students. "We can start classes on Monday," Sophia said, looking around with satisfaction. It felt good to have a purpose again, to be thinking about something other than her ordeal. "The children will be so excited," Martha said. "They have been running wild for weeks." Sophia walked back toward the boarding house, her mind already planning lessons, when she saw Nathan standing outside the general store, talking with Sheriff Morrison. Her heart did an odd little skip at the sight of him. He had cleaned up since yesterday, his hair still damp from what must have been a bath, wearing a fresh buckskin shirt. He saw her and smiled, and Sophia felt warmth spread through her chest. "Miss Lancaster, I was just coming to find you." "Were you?" Sophia said, aware that both Martha and Sheriff Morrison were watching with interest. "I wanted to make sure you were settled in all right," Nathan said, "and to see if you needed anything before I head out." "You are leaving today?" Sophia asked, unable to keep the disappointment from her voice. Nathan's expression softened. "I was planning to, but Would you like to take a walk with me? There is something I want to show you." Sophia glanced at Martha, who shooed her away with a smile. "Go on, dear. I will see you at dinner." Nathan offered Sophia his arm, and she took it, acutely aware of the solid strength of him beside her. He led her through the town and up a small hill on the outskirts, to where there was a flat rock that overlooked the valley. From here they could see the whole town spread out below them, with mountains rising on all sides. "It is beautiful," Sophia said. "I wanted you to see it," Nathan said. "Wanted you to see that Tanapa Junction is a good place. You will be happy here." "And you?" Sophia asked, turning to face him. "Will you be happy in your cabin in the mountains all alone?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment, looking out over the valley. "I thought I would be," he finally said. "I have been alone for so long, I forgot what it was like to have someone to talk to share things with. These past 2 days with you, even with all the danger and the fear, I felt more alive than I have in years." Sophia's breath caught. "Nathan." "I know I have no right to ask this," Nathan continued, his voice rough. "We barely know each other. But I cannot stop thinking about you, Sophia. About your courage on that auction block, your strength, the way you laugh even when things are at their worst, the way you listen when I talk, like what I have to say actually matters." "It does matter," Sophia said softly. "You matter, Nathan." He turned to look at her then, and the intensity in his gray eyes made her knees weak. "I am leaving today because I thought that was what you needed. For me to bring you somewhere safe and then get out of your life so you could move forward. But if there is any chance, any possibility that you might want me to stay, even for a little while longer, I will. Because the thought of riding back up to that cabin and never seeing you again is tearing me apart." Sophia's heart was hammering in her chest. She thought about the past 2 days, about how safe she had felt with Nathan, how easy it was to talk to him, how she had not wanted to let him go. She thought about his cabin in the mountains, his love of books, the gentleness in his strong hands. She thought about spending her life teaching in Tanapa Junction, a good life, a safe life, but one without Nathan in it. "I do not want you to leave," she said, the words tumbling out. "I know it is crazy, I know we just met, but when I think about you leaving, something inside me aches. These past 2 days, you have been so good to me, so kind and protective without being controlling. You have treated me like an equal, like someone whose opinions and choices matter. I have never felt that way with a man before." "You are my equal," Nathan said, reaching out to cup her face with one large hand. "In every way that matters, probably my better in most. Stay," Sophia whispered. "Just for a little while. Let us get to know each other properly without danger and fear forcing us together. If in a week or a month we realize this was just the intensity of the situation, then you can go back to your mountains. But at least give us a chance." "A chance," Nathan repeated, his thumb stroking gently across her cheekbone. "I like the sound of that." He leaned down slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away if she wanted to. Sophia did not want to. She rose up on her toes and met him halfway, their lips coming together in a kiss that was sweet and gentle and filled with promise. Nathan's arms came around her, pulling her close, and Sophia melted into his embrace, feeling safer and more cherished than she had in her entire life. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I will stay," he said. "For as long as you will have me." "Forever might be good," Sophia said, surprising herself with her boldness. Nathan laughed, a warm, rich sound that she felt in her bones. "Forever sounds perfect." They walked back to town hand in hand, and if people noticed and whispered, Sophia did not care. She had been through hell and come out the other side, and she was not about to let propriety or expectations stop her from pursuing something that felt this right. Nathan found work easily enough. The town needed someone to hunt fresh meat for the butcher, and Nathan's skills made him perfect for the job. He also hired on for some carpentry work, helping to build a new barn for one of the ranchers outside town. He took a room at the boarding house, just down the hall from Sophia, and they fell into an easy routine. Sophia started teaching on Monday, and she loved it. The children of Tanapa Junction were eager to learn, their ages ranging from 6 to 15. Some could barely read, while others were quite advanced. Sophia divided them into groups and worked with each according to their level, finding creative ways to make lessons engaging in the evenings. She and Nathan would sit on the porch of the boarding house, talking about their days. Nathan would tell her about the elk he had tracked or the ridiculous argument he had overheard in the general store, and Sophia would share stories about her students' antics. Sometimes they would read together, Nathan borrowing books from the small library Sophia was building in the schoolhouse. Other times they would simply sit in comfortable silence, Nathan whittling while Sophia graded papers. They went for walks on Sundays, exploring the area around Tanapa Junction. Nathan showed her how to identify animal tracks, how to find water in the desert, which plants were safe to eat and which were poisonous. Sophia taught him some Latin, laughing at his attempts to wrap his tongue around the unfamiliar words, and they had long philosophical discussions about literature and life. Through it all, their connection deepened. Sophia learned that Nathan had nightmares sometimes about the war, and she would sit with him when he woke gasping in the darkness, her presence helping to ground him. Nathan learned that Sophia was afraid of thunderstorms, a fear that dated back to childhood, and he would distract her with stories or games when the weather turned bad. They had their first real argument 6 weeks after Nathan arrived in Tanapa Junction. A merchant from another town had come through and made some crude comments to Sophia when she was walking back from the schoolhouse. Nathan had been nearby and had immediately stepped in, his protective instincts flaring. He had backed the merchant up against a wall and made it very clear that such behavior was not acceptable. "You cannot just threaten every man who looks at me sideways," Sophia said later, exasperated and a little frightened by the intensity she had seen in Nathan's eyes. "I can handle myself." "He was disrespecting you," Nathan said, his jaw tight. "I will not stand by and let that happen." "I appreciate that you want to protect me," Sophia said, "but I am not some fragile flower that needs constant defending. I survived that auction block. I survived the stagecoach attack. I can handle a rude merchant." Nathan ran his hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "I know you can handle yourself. I have seen your strength firsthand. But the thought of anyone hurting you, even with words, it makes me see red. I cannot help it." "Then you need to learn to help it," Sophia said firmly. "Because I will not be with a man who thinks he has to fight my battles for me. I need a partner, Nathan, not a bodyguard." They stared at each other for a long moment, tension thick between them. Finally, Nathan let out a long breath. "You are right, I am sorry. I let my instincts override my common sense. It will not happen again. Can you promise me that?" Sophia asked. "Because this is important to me. I need to know that you see me as capable." "I do see you as capable," Nathan said. "And I promise to remember that, even when my protective side wants to take over. But Sophia, you need to understand something. I am always going to want to keep you safe. That is just who I am. I will try to do it in a way that respects your independence, but I cannot turn off caring about your well-being." Sophia felt her anger soften. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the genuine struggle between his nature and his desire to honor her wishes. "I can live with that," she said. "As long as you can trust me to handle things myself sometimes." "I can do that," Nathan said, He held out his hand. "Truce, truce," Sophia agreed, taking his hand. He pulled her into his arms and she went willingly, tucking her head under his chin. "I am still learning how to be with someone," Nathan said quietly. "How to balance being independent with being part of something bigger. Bear with me while I figure it out, if you bear with me while I figure it out too," Sophia said. "I have never been courted before. My father would have chased off any potential suitors with a fireplace poker." Nathan chuckled. "I would have liked to meet your father. Any man who raised a daughter like you must have been something special." "He was," Sophia said softly. "He would have liked you too. He always said that the measure of a man was not in his education or his wealth, but in how he treated those weaker than himself. You have more honor in your little finger than most men have in their whole body." "You are going to make me blush, Miss Lancaster," Nathan said, but she could hear the pleased embarrassment in his voice. As summer turned to autumn, the relationship between Sophia and Nathan continued to deepen. They had settled into a comfortable rhythm, but there was also an undercurrent of tension, an awareness of each other that was becoming harder to ignore. The kisses they shared grew longer, more heated. The accidental touches lingered. One evening in late October, they were sitting on the porch of the boarding house when Nathan took her hand. "Sophia, there is something I need to talk to you about." "That sounds ominous," Sophia said, though her heart had started beating faster. "Not ominous. At least I hope not." Nathan took a deep breath. "Winter is coming. Usually by this time of year I would be heading back up to my cabin, stocking up for the cold months. But this year I do not want to go." "Then do not go," Sophia said simply. "It is not that easy," Nathan said. "My cabin is my home. It is where I have lived for 8 years. All my belongings are there, my supplies, my whole life. But Sophia, you are here. And the thought of being up in that cabin all winter, knowing you are down here, not seeing you for months, it is unbearable. So what are you saying?" Sophia asked, though she thought she knew. "I am saying that I love you," Nathan said, his gray eyes locked on hers. "I am completely, utterly in love with you, and I have been since the moment I saw you on that auction block, looking like you were ready to burn the whole world down. I love your strength and your kindness and your intelligence. I love the way you laugh at my terrible jokes and the way you get passionate when you talk about teaching. I love everything about you, and I do not want to spend a single day apart from you if I can help it." Sophia felt tears pricking at her eyes, happy tears this time. "I love you too," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I think I started falling in love with you when you offered me your hand to step down from that auction platform. You have been my anchor, my protector, my best friend. I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Nathan cupped her face with both hands, his touch infinitely gentle despite the calluses on his palms. "Then marry me. Be my wife. We can build a life together, here in Tanapa Junction or anywhere else you want. I will give up the cabin, give up the mountains, give up anything if it means I get to wake up next to you every morning." "I would never ask you to give up the mountains," Sophia said. "They are part of who you are. But yes, Nathan Wright. Yes, I will marry you with all my heart." He kissed her then, and it was different from the other kisses they had shared. This one was a promise, a commitment, the sealing of their future together. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling so wide it almost hurt. "We should tell people," Nathan said. "Evelyn is probably listening at the window." Sophia laughed. "She absolutely is, along with half the boarding house." They stood, still holding hands, and walked inside to share their news. Evelyn did indeed squeal with delight, having been listening through the window, and within minutes, it seemed like the whole house was celebrating. Sheriff Morrison, who happened to be visiting, offered to perform the ceremony himself, as he was authorized to officiate weddings in Nevada. No need to wait, Morrison said with a grin. Unless you want a fancy wedding with all the trimmings. Sophia and Nathan looked at each other. I do not need fancy, Sophia said. I just need him. Give us a week to prepare, Nathan said. I want to do this right. Get you a proper ring, make sure you have a nice dress. But then, yes, let us get married. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. The women of Tanapa Junction rallied around Sophia, helping her prepare. Martha Whitmore had a wedding dress from her own marriage that she offered to alter to fit Sophia. Evelyn organized a wedding feast. The men helped Nathan build furniture for the small house they were going to rent on the edge of town, right next to the schoolhouse. Nathan disappeared for 2 days and returned with a simple gold band that he had ridden all the way to Carson City to purchase. It is not much, he said, showing it to Sophia privately, but it was the best I could afford. It is perfect, Sophia said, meaning it. She did not need diamonds or fancy jewelry. She just needed the symbol of their commitment to each other. On a crisp November morning, Sophia walked down the aisle of the small church on James Whitmore's arm, as he had volunteered to give her away in the absence of her father. She wore Martha's altered wedding dress, simple white cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs, and carried a bouquet of late-blooming wildflowers that Nathan had picked himself. Nathan stood at the front of the church, looking nervous and handsome in new clothes he had purchased for the occasion. His hair was neatly tied back, and someone had convinced him to trim his beard. When Sophia appeared, his face lit up with such joy that she felt her eyes fill with tears. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. They exchanged vows in front of the entire town, promising to love and honor each other for the rest of their lives. When Sheriff Morrison pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed Sophia with such tenderness that half the women in the church started crying. The wedding feast was held in the town hall, with everyone contributing food and drink. There was music and dancing, and Sophia laughed more than she had in years. At one point, Nathan swept her onto the dance floor, and despite his protestations that he was not much of a dancer, he moved with surprising grace. "Happy?" he asked, holding her close as they swayed to the music. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Sophia said honestly. 5 months ago, I was on an auction block thinking my life was over. Now I am married to the most wonderful man I have ever met, with a job I love in a town full of good people. It feels like a dream. If it is a dream, I never want to wake up, Nathan said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. As the evening wore on, they slipped away from the celebration and walked to their new house. It was small, just 3 rooms, but it was theirs. Nathan had built most of the furniture himself, sturdy and well-crafted. There was a real bed with a feather mattress, a gift from Evelyn. Bookshelves lined one wall, ready to be filled with their growing collection. A stone fireplace took up most of another wall, already laid with wood ready to be lit. Nathan carried Sophia over the threshold, making her squeal with laughter. He set her down gently in the middle of the main room. "Welcome home, Mrs. Wright." "Mrs. Wright," Sophia repeated, trying out the sound of it. "I like that." "Good," Nathan said, pulling her close, "because you are stuck with it now." Their wedding night was tender and sweet, full of whispered words and gentle touches. Nathan was careful with her, constantly checking to make sure she was comfortable, that this was what she wanted. Sophia had never felt more cherished, more loved. Afterward, they lay tangled together in their bed, skin against skin, hearts beating in sync. "I never thought I would have this," Nathan said into the darkness. "A wife, a home, a real life beyond just surviving. You have given me everything, Sophia." "You have given me everything too," Sophia replied, pressing a kiss to his chest. "Safety, love, a future I never dared to hope for." "We saved each other, Nathan." "Yeah," he agreed softly. I guess we did. Winter came to Tanapa Junction, bringing cold winds and occasional snow. Sophia continued teaching, bundling up in layers as she made the short walk from their house to the schoolhouse each morning. Nathan continued hunting and doing odd jobs around town, but he also started talking about other possibilities for the spring. "I have been thinking," he said one evening as they sat by the fire, Sophia grading papers while Nathan repaired a broken chair. "About that cabin of mine up in the mountains. We could go up there in the summer months, spend a few months living off the land. You could take a break from teaching, and I could show you the high country. Then come back down here for the school year." "You would want to split your time between the mountains and the town?" Sophia asked. "I would want to be wherever you are," Nathan said. "But yes, I think I would like to keep a foot in both worlds. The mountains are part of me, but so is this life we are building here. We could have the best of both." "I would like that," Sophia said thoughtfully. "I have to admit, the way you describe your cabin, I have always been curious to see it, and I would love to spend time in the mountains with you, learning about that part of your life." "It is settled then," Nathan said with satisfaction. "Come summer, we will take a trip up to the cabin. Fair warning, though, it is not fancy, no feather mattress or glass windows." "I think I can survive," Sophia said dryly. "I am tougher than I look." "Oh, I know exactly how tough you are," Nathan said, setting aside the chair and moving to sit next to her on the sofa. "I have seen you face down an entire town full of men and never flinch. A few months without fancy amenities will not break you." Sophia set aside her papers and leaned into Nathan's warmth. "Tell me about what it is like in the summer, at the cabin." Nathan wrapped his arm around her and began to paint a picture with words. He talked about the wildflowers that carpeted the meadow, the herds of elk that would pass through, the crystal-clear stream where they could fish and cool off on hot days. He described the sunrises over the mountain peaks and the way the stars looked at night, so bright and numerous that you felt like you could reach up and touch them. "It sounds like paradise," Sophia said dreamily. "It is," Nathan agreed, "but it is lonely too, or it was before I met you. Now I can imagine you there with me, and it makes the place feel complete in a way it never did before." As winter progressed, Sophia discovered she was pregnant. The realization came one morning in early January when she could not keep down her breakfast, and Evelyn gave her a knowing look. Dr. Harrison confirmed it that afternoon. Sophia walked home in a daze, one hand pressed to her still flat stomach. A baby. She and Nathan were going to have a baby. She had not expected it to happen so quickly, but the idea filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. Nathan was chopping wood behind their house when she arrived home. He looked up with a smile that faded when he saw her expression. "Sophia, what is wrong? You look pale." "I am fine," Sophia said quickly. "Better than fine, actually. Nathan, I am pregnant." The axe fell from Nathan's hands, forgotten. He crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides and swept her up in his arms, spinning her around. "A baby! We are having a baby, we are," Sophia confirmed, laughing at his enthusiasm. "Dr. Harrison estimates sometime in late August or early September." Nathan set her down carefully, as if she were made of glass. "Are you happy? I know we have not talked about children much." "I am terrified," Sophia admitted. "But yes, I am happy. I want this, Nathan. I want a family with you." "I am terrified too," Nathan confessed. "What if I am a terrible father? What if I do not know how to take care of a baby?" "Then we will figure it out together," Sophia said firmly, "just like we have figured out everything else." The news of Sophia's pregnancy spread through Tanapa Junction like wildfire, and the whole town seemed to take a collective interest in her well-being. The women brought her remedies for morning sickness and gave her advice, some useful and some contradictory. The men started a project to build a proper cradle for the baby, with each contributing some piece to the construction. As Sophia's belly grew, Nathan became even more protective, though he tried to hide it after their earlier argument. He would walk her to and from the schoolhouse, carry anything heavier than a book, and generally hover until Sophia had to gently remind him that pregnancy was not an illness. "I know," Nathan said, looking sheepish. "But Sophia, you are carrying our child. Let me take care of you." "You can take care of me without treating me like I am made of porcelain," Sophia said. "I am still perfectly capable of walking to the schoolhouse on my own." "I know you are capable," Nathan said, "but I like walking with you. Is that so terrible?" Sophia softened. "No, it is not terrible. I like walking with you too. Just promise me you will not try to stop me from teaching when I get further along. Some of the women have been suggesting I should rest at home for the last few months, but I want to keep working as long as I am able." "I promise," Nathan said. "Though if you ever feel tired or unwell, you will tell me, right?" "I will tell you," Sophia agreed. Spring came to Tanapa Junction, bringing warmer weather and new life. Sophia continued teaching, though she had to adjust some activities as her belly made it harder to move around the schoolhouse. The children were fascinated by the pregnancy, constantly asking questions about when the baby would arrive and whether it would be a boy or a girl. "I do not know," Sophia told them patiently. "We will have to wait and see." In May, Nathan received a letter that had been forwarded from Carson City. His sister in St. Louis had written, sharing news of her family and asking after him. She mentioned that she had heard he had gotten married and wanted to know all about his wife. Nathan showed the letter to Sophia that evening. "Would you want to write to her? Or even visit, maybe after the baby comes? I know it is a long journey, but Clara is good people. I think you would like her." "I would love to meet her," Sophia said. "And yes, I will write to her. It would be nice for our child to know their aunt." Sophia penned a long letter introducing herself, telling Clara about how she and Nathan had met and fallen in love, about their life in Tanapa Junction and the baby on the way. She tried to paint a picture of their happiness without being too effusive. When she gave the letter to Nathan to read before sending, he had tears in his eyes. "What is wrong?" Sophia asked, concerned. "Nothing is wrong," Nathan said, his voice thick. "It is just, reading this, seeing our life through your words, it makes me realize how far I have come. 8 years ago, I was a broken man hiding in the mountains. Now I have a wife who loves me, a baby on the way, a home. I never thought I deserved any of this." "You deserve all of it and more," Sophia said fiercely, taking his hands. "You are a good man, Nathan Wright. The best man I have ever known. Never doubt that." As summer approached, they discussed whether to still make the trip to Nathan's cabin given Sophia's pregnancy. Dr. Harrison advised against it, saying that Sophia should stay close to town as she neared her due date. "We can go next summer," Nathan said, though Sophia could hear the disappointment in his voice. "The cabin has waited this long. It can wait another year." "I am sorry," Sophia said. "I know you wanted to show me the mountains." "The mountains will still be there," Nathan said. "What matters is you and the baby being safe and healthy. Everything else can wait." In late August, on a warm evening when the sun was setting over the mountains, Sophia's labor began. Nathan fetched Dr. Harrison and Evelyn, then paced outside the bedroom like a caged animal while they attended to his wife. The labor lasted through the night and into the next morning, and Nathan aged 10 years in those hours, imagining every possible thing that could go wrong. Finally, just as the sun was rising, he heard the thin wail of a newborn baby. Dr. Harrison emerged from the bedroom, looking tired but pleased. "Congratulations, Nathan. You have a healthy daughter." "A daughter," Nathan repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "And Sophia, "Tired but well," the doctor said. "Go meet your daughter." Nathan entered the bedroom on shaking legs. Sophia was propped up against the pillows, her dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, looking exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in a white blanket. "Nathan," Sophia said softly, "come meet our daughter." He approached the bed carefully, his eyes locked on the small face peeking out from the blanket. She had wisps of dark hair and a tiny nose and impossibly small fingers that were curled into fists. Nathan reached out with one large, calloused finger and touched her cheek. The baby's eyes opened, revealing gray eyes like his own. "She is perfect," Nathan breathed. "You are perfect, both of you." "Do you want to hold her?" Sophia asked. Nathan nodded, unable to speak. Sophia carefully transferred the baby into his arms, and Nathan held his daughter for the first time, overwhelmed by the fierce surge of love and protectiveness that swept through him. This tiny person, this perfect little being, was his and Sophia's. "What should we name her?" Sophia asked. They had discussed names but had not settled on anything. Now, looking down at his daughter, Nathan said, "What about Emma, after my mother?" "Emma Wright," Sophia tested the name. "I like it. Emma Grace Wright." "Grace," Nathan repeated, "because we were both saved by grace. By luck or fate, or whatever you want to call it, that brought us together." "By love," Sophia corrected gently. "We were saved by love." The first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Emma was a good baby, but she still needed to be fed every few hours, changed constantly, and soothed when she cried. Nathan threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else, learning how to swaddle and rock and change diapers with fumbling determination. Sophia watched him with their daughter and fell even more in love with her husband. He was so gentle with Emma, so patient, despite his large hands and rough appearance. He would spend hours just holding her, talking to her in a low voice about everything and nothing, telling her about the mountains and the animals and the adventures they would have when she was older. Winter came again, and Emma grew from a tiny newborn into a chubby, alert infant who smiled at her parents and made cooing sounds. Sophia returned to teaching in January, with Evelyn looking after Emma during the day. It was hard to leave her daughter, but Sophia also craved the intellectual stimulation of teaching, and the income helped their growing family. That spring, Clara wrote back, thrilled about becoming an aunt. She sent gifts for Emma and an open invitation for them to visit St. Louis whenever they wanted. Nathan was pleased by his sister's response, and he and Sophia began planning a trip for the following year, once Emma was old enough to travel more easily. When summer arrived, Emma was 10 months old, sitting up on her own and babbling constantly. Nathan broached the subject of the cabin again. "I know we said we would wait, but Emma is doing well, and I think the mountain air would be good for her. We could just go for a month, see how it goes. If it is too hard with the baby, we can come back early." Sophia considered it. She had been cooped up in town for over a year now, and part of her longed for adventure, to see the mountains Nathan loved so much. "All right," she said. "Let us try it, but if it becomes too difficult with Emma, we come back." "Agreed, agreed," Nathan said, grinning. They spent 2 weeks preparing for the journey, packing supplies and making arrangements. Evelyn agreed to look after their house while they were gone. The town threw them a small farewell party, with everyone wishing them well and making Emma promise to come back safe. The journey to the cabin took 3 days, traveling slowly to accommodate the baby. Nathan had rigged a special carrier so Emma could ride safely, and they stopped frequently to let her rest and play. Sophia was amazed by the changing landscape as they climbed higher into the mountains, leaving the desert heat behind for cooler, pine-scented air. When they finally arrived at the cabin, Sophia understood why Nathan loved it so much. It sat in a meadow filled with wildflowers, just as he had described, with mountains rising on all sides and a clear stream bubbling nearby. The cabin itself was small but solidly built, with a stone chimney and a covered porch. "What do you think?" Nathan asked nervously as he helped Sophia down from the horse. "I think it is beautiful," Sophia said honestly. "I can see why you spent so much time here." They settled into life at the cabin quickly. Nathan taught Sophia how to fish in the stream, how to identify edible plants, how to track animals through the forest. Sophia read aloud to him in the evenings while Emma played on a blanket at their feet. They made love under the stars, with the sounds of the wilderness around them, and Sophia felt more connected to Nathan than ever. Emma thrived in the mountains, her chubby legs kicking with joy at the open space and fresh air. She learned to crawl on the cabin floor, pulling herself up on furniture and babbling at the chickadees that landed on the porch railing. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Nathan said, "Thank you for giving this a chance, for coming here with me. I know it is not easy living without the comforts of town." "It is not about easy," Sophia said, leaning against his shoulder. "It is about being together, about sharing all the parts of our lives with each other. I love our house in Tanapa Junction and I love teaching, but I also love this. I love seeing you in your element, so completely at home in the wilderness. I love that Emma gets to experience this. We are making memories that will last a lifetime." "We are," Nathan agreed, wrapping his arm around her. "Next summer, we will bring her back, and she will be running around this meadow, chasing butterflies and getting into mischief." "I cannot wait," Sophia said with a smile. They stayed at the cabin for 6 weeks before heading back to Tanapa Junction. By then, Emma had learned to pull herself up to standing, and Sophia was fairly certain she was pregnant again. She did not say anything to Nathan yet, wanting to be sure, but she recognized the signs from before. Their return to town was greeted with celebration. The house was exactly as they had left it, thanks to Evelyn's care, and Sophia was able to jump right back into preparing lessons for the new school year. Nathan resumed his work, but he also began making plans for improvements to the cabin, talking about adding a second room for when Emma got older. In October, Sophia confirmed her pregnancy with Dr. Harrison. She waited until she and Nathan were alone that evening to tell him. "Nathan, I have news." He looked up from the saddle he was mending, his expression attentive. "Good news or bad news?" "Good news," Sophia said. "At least I think it is good news. We are going to have another baby." Nathan's face split into a huge grin. He set aside the saddle and crossed to her, pulling her into a careful embrace. "That is wonderful news. Emma will be a big sister." "She will," Sophia agreed. "Are you happy?" "I am thrilled," Nathan said. "Our family is growing. How could I be anything but happy?" The second pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because Sophia knew what to expect. She continued teaching until March, when her growing belly made it too difficult to move around the schoolhouse comfortably. The town rallied around them again, with the women bringing food and the men building a second cradle. In late May, Sophia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Andrew Nathan Wright, after Nathan's father. Andrew had Nathan's dark hair and Sophia's green eyes, and he was a vigorous baby who nursed heartily and slept well. Emma, now 20 months old, was fascinated by her baby brother. She would pat his head gently and bring him her toys, not understanding why he could not play with them yet. Nathan and Sophia watched their children together, marveling at the family they had created. 2 years ago, I was alone on an auction block, Sophia said one evening, nursing Andrew while Emma slept in her bed. Now I have a husband I adore, 2 beautiful children, a home, a career I love. Sometimes I cannot believe this is my life." "Believe it," Nathan said, sitting beside her and putting his arm around her shoulders. "You deserve every bit of happiness, Sophia. You fought for it, survived hell to get here. This life we have built, it is real and it is ours." As the years passed, their family continued to grow and thrive. They added a daughter, named Clara after Nathan's sister, 2 years after Andrew's birth. Clara had Sophia's dark hair and Nathan's gray eyes, and she was a fearless child who kept her parents constantly on their toes. They made the trip to the cabin every summer, the journey becoming easier as the children grew older. Emma learned to ride her own pony at age 5, and Andrew followed suit at 4. They would spend 2 months in the mountains each year, the children running wild in the meadow while Sophia, Reed, and Nathan hunted and taught them wilderness skills. In the winters, they were back in Tanapa Junction, Sophia teaching and Nathan working various jobs around town. As the children grew, they attended their mother's school, and Sophia took pride in educating her own offspring alongside the other town children. When Emma was 8, Andrew 6, and Clara 4, they finally made the long-anticipated trip to St. Louis to visit Nathan's sister. It was a grand adventure, taking the train across the country, seeing cities and landscapes they had only read about. Clara welcomed them with open arms, and her own children became fast friends with Emma, Andrew, and Clara. "I am so glad you came," Clara told Nathan as they sat on her porch one evening, watching the children play in the yard. "I was worried about you for so long, up in those mountains all alone, but you have built such a beautiful life. Sophia is wonderful, and your children are a credit to you both." "I was lost for a long time," Nathan admitted. "After the war, I did not know how to live in the world anymore. The mountains gave me a place to heal, but it was Sophia who brought me back to life. She saved me in every way that matters." "You saved each other," Clara said wisely. "That is what the best marriages are. 2 people making each other better, stronger, happier than they could ever be alone." Nathan thought about that conversation often in the years that followed. Clara was right. He and Sophia had saved each other, had built something beautiful from the ashes of their separate traumas. Their love story had started with violence and fear, but it had grown into something solid and enduring, a partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and deep affection. As their children grew into teenagers, Nathan and Sophia watched with pride. Emma inherited her mother's love of learning and her father's adventurous spirit. She talked about becoming a teacher like her mother, or perhaps a doctor. Andrew was quiet and thoughtful, with a gift for working with animals. He spent hours helping with the horses and talked about becoming a veterinarian. Young Clara was fearless and outgoing, making friends wherever she went and declaring that she would one day run her own business. Nathan continued to split his time between town and the mountains, though as he got older, the high country became harder on his body. The years of hard living, the war, the demanding physical work all took their toll. By the time he was 50, his joints ached in the cold, and the climb to the cabin left him winded. "Maybe it is time to spend more time in town," Sophia suggested gently one evening. They were at the cabin, but Nathan had spent most of the day resting instead of hunting or exploring like he used to. "I do not want to give up the cabin," Nathan said stubbornly. "This place is part of who I am." "I am not suggesting you give it up," Sophia said. "But maybe we do not need to spend 2 months up here every summer. Maybe a few weeks would be enough. And you could let Andrew take over more of the hunting and maintenance. He is 17 now, more than capable." Nathan knew she was right, but it still stung to admit that age was catching up with him. He had always been so strong, so capable, and the idea of slowing down felt like failure. Sophia moved to sit beside him, taking his hand. "Nathan Wright, you are the strongest man I have ever known. Not just physically, but in character. You saved my life, built a home for us, raised 3 incredible children. You have nothing to prove to anyone, least of all me. If you need to take things easier now, there is no shame in that." "When did you get so wise?" Nathan asked, squeezing her hand. "I have been wise all along," Sophia said with a smile. "You just sometimes forget to listen." They compromised, continuing to visit the cabin each summer but for shorter periods. Andrew did take over more of the work, proving himself to be as capable as his father in the wilderness. Emma graduated from school and indeed became a teacher, taking over her mother's position when Sophia finally retired at age 55. Clara opened a general store in Tanapa Junction, bringing new energy and ideas to the business. Nathan and Sophia watched their children marry and start families of their own. Emma married a kind lawyer who had moved to town, and they had 3 children. Andrew married the daughter of a local rancher, and they settled on a homestead near the cabin, living the mountain life Nathan had loved. Clara married a merchant from Carson City, and they expanded her store into a thriving enterprise. As grandparents, Nathan and Sophia discovered new depths of joy. They doted on their grandchildren, telling them stories of the old days, of how Grandma had refused to be bought on an auction block, and how Grandpa had swept in like a hero from one of their adventure books. Was Grandpa really a mountain man? One of Emma's sons asked Nathan when he was about 6 years old. "I was," Nathan confirmed. "Lived up in those mountains for 8 years all by myself before I met your grandmother." "Were you lonely?" the boy asked. Nathan considered the question. "Yes," he said honestly. "I did not realize how lonely until I met your grandmother. Then I understood what I had been missing all those years. That is why family is so important. That is why you should never take the people you love for granted." When Nathan was 65, his health began to decline more noticeably. The doctor said it was his heart, worn out from years of hard living. Nathan accepted the news with his characteristic calm, though Sophia saw the fear in his eyes when he thought she was not looking. They spent that summer at the cabin, knowing it might be the last time. The whole family came. 3 generations crowded into the small cabin and sleeping under the stars. They fished in the stream, hiked through the meadows, and sat around the campfire at night while Nathan told stories of his adventures. On their last evening before heading back to town, Nathan and Sophia sat on the porch alone, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. "I have had a good life," Nathan said quietly. "Better than I ever deserved, and it is all because of you, Sophia. Because you were brave enough to refuse to let me buy you, then generous enough to stay with me anyway." "I stayed because I fell in love with you," Sophia said, tears in her eyes though she tried to blink them back. "And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Every moment, every challenge, every joy. I love you, Nathan Wright. I have loved you from the moment you offered me your hand on that auction platform." "I love you too," Nathan said, pulling her close. "More than I have words to express. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat together as the stars came out, holding each other, surrounded by the mountains and the memories of all their years together. It was a moment of perfect peace, of complete contentment. Nathan lived for 3 more years, his health gradually failing but his spirit remaining strong. He passed away peacefully in his sleep one autumn night, with Sophia holding his hand, and their children and grandchildren gathered around his bed. He was 68 years old and had lived a full, rich life. Sophia grieved deeply for the man who had been her partner, her protector, her best friend for over 30 years. But she also took comfort in the family they had built together, in the legacy of love they had created. She continued to live in their house in Tanapa Junction, surrounded by children and grandchildren, teaching occasionally when substitute teachers were needed, writing letters to faraway family. On the anniversary of Nathan's death each year, Sophia would ride up to the cabin, now maintained by Andrew and his family. She would sit on the porch and talk to Nathan, telling him about the grandchildren's accomplishments, about town gossip, about how much she missed him. She would sleep in their bed in the cabin, wrapped in one of his old shirts, and dream of the adventures they had shared. When Sophia was 73, she peacefully passed away in her sleep, surrounded by 3 generations of family who had gathered for her birthday. Her children found letters she had written to each of them, expressing her love and pride, sharing wisdom accumulated over a lifetime. To Emma, Andrew, and Clara collectively, she left one final message. "Your father and I built something beautiful together," she had written. "We started with nothing but love and determination, and we created a family, a legacy that will continue long after we are gone. Never forget where you came from. Never forget that we were saved by love, by the grace of finding each other when we needed it most. Live your lives with courage, with kindness, with the fierce determination to make the world better than you found it. And know that your father and I loved you more than words can ever express." Emma, Andrew, and Clara buried their mother next to their father in the cemetery overlooking Tanapa Junction, with the mountains rising in the distance. The whole town attended the funeral, 3 generations of people whose lives had been touched by Sophia's teaching and Nathan's kindness. At the reception afterward, Emma stood to give a toast. "My parents had an unusual love story," she said, her voice strong despite her tears. "My mother was on an auction block about to be sold like property. My father could have bought her, but he did not. He offered her a choice, respected her autonomy, and then protected her when she chose to leave with him anyway. They built a marriage on mutual respect, deep love, and unwavering partnership. They showed us what it means to be truly committed to another person, to choose love every single day, even when it is hard. I am who I am because of them, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to live up to the example they set." The family returned to the cabin that summer as they did every year. But this time, they placed a memorial stone in the meadow, engraved with both Nathan's and Sophia's names and a simple inscription. She refused to let the mountain man buy her, then stayed of her own free will. Together they built a legacy of love. Their grandchildren would bring their own children to that cabin in the years to come, telling the story of great-grandma Sophia, who stood up to an entire town full of men, and great-grandpa Nathan, who respected her choice and won her heart with his kindness and strength. The story would be told and retold, embellished and refined, but at its core it remained the same. It was a story of 2 broken people who found each other in the worst of circumstances and chose to build something beautiful together. It was a story of love that respected freedom, of strength tempered with gentleness, of a partnership that lasted a lifetime and beyond. It was the story of how a mountain man and a schoolteacher from Philadelphia created a legacy that would endure for generations, rooted in the mountains of Nevada and the love they shared. And in the end, that was the best story of all.